So this has been sort of I don't know if like I feel like this show is liked by a lot of people or it's loved by a lot of people, but there's a few people who criticize it really heavily, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like they make really good points as to why there's certain parts of this series that they don't enjoy for some reason. And I've looked at all like the negative reviews that talk about this, and they make sense and all that, but I still think it doesn't take away from your own experience to kind of enjoy something, even though it's critically bad from some people. Like I don't consider myself any type of reviewer or something. It's just I watch something, and if I enjoy it, I enjoy it. It's just how it is. And if it makes sense sort of in the realm of the world that they built, I don't know, like I just enjoyed it. But I really loved ReZero. I remember watching it. I recently we rewatched it about a month ago to kind of see if I missed anything, and because like this, it starts off really like it doesn't even have an intro at the beginning. It starts off like almost feels like a movie. It has like the not the credits, but like the intro scene stuff with the text and everything, and it's like, oh, this animation looks really pretty and everything, and I didn't know what type of show it was gonna be. I just gave it a watch, and I was really confused for like the first 4 to 5 episodes, and then I started kind of understanding, and the more it started talking about this time traveling or like resetting your life every time you die, the more interested I became into the show. And it's not like something that it's unique. It's been done before, but I don't know, like the things that I've read, and they make sense as well, but that's just not how I see it. Like a lot of people did hate the main protagonist in the show. They hated Subaru. I don't know how to pronounce his name right, so I'm just gonna say the protagonist. But they hated the main character in this show, and like it makes sense. Like there was a lot of criticism revolving around him and how he really wasn't a good character or whatever. And there's even an episode where he talks about this, like I personally never saw anything wrong with him. Like I guess it's different, when you watch something that's for entertainment, it's supposed to be entertaining for you. Like when it comes to the reality of who we are as people, some of us are entertaining, some of us are not. Like me, I'm a boring person, I have a boring personality. And then there's other people who are entertaining, so I can, like, if someone were to like make a story out of my life, there would be nothing special. But there's other people who live these special lives, or at least are able to be more exciting and have a better personality than I ever will. And that kind of makes for a better story that people want to kind of enjoy seeing. So that's kind of the way that I view every time that I watch certain things, which is probably really bad because you're supposed to watch these things to enjoy them, not to see like something bland. But I don't know. It makes it feel more realistic. But then again, feeling realistic is kind of subjective because depending on the kind of life you live and the kind of person that you have, the kind of person that you are, and sort of like the personality that you have, you can either relate to this certain character or you may not relate. But before I get into like that episode, which is one of my favorites, I wanted to talk about how a lot of people kept saying that he had many chances, like, because this is basically based on like he dies, and every time that he doesn't make it to a certain checkpoint, I would say, he has to start over and redo everything from square one. And a lot of the times he never seems to do the right thing. Like, even though he's given multiple chances to do something, he seems to still keep messing up, even though he already knows what not to do. It takes him a couple of tries until he finally gets the good outcome of his life. And the way I understood it it's like a lot of us, sometimes we don't really learn from our mistakes, which is kind of naive, but it happens to the best of us. And sometimes it takes us a lot of tries to figure the correct ways to do certain things. But he's given a lot of chances, and I feel like a lot of people hated this because he sort of took a while to figure out the path to take in order to keep progressing or to make the right choices that seem simple from an outside perspective. But whenever, like, a lot of things seem simple from an outside perspective when you're looking at somebody else and you sort of see, like, why is that person doing that? But when you're actually living that type of life, maybe you're not really thinking critical because you're living it. It's kind of hard to see within from your own perspective whenever you're living that and you're kind of clouded by everything that's going on, whether it may be someone that's cheating on you or abusing you or all these other reasons. And it's kind of like you're clouded by your own emotions and you're not able to see outside of what everybody else is seeing. So I kind of understood that. And that's how I sort of took it, because he kept resetting, and it sort of sucked because he would get, like, it was really frustrating because he would get to a certain point and it's like, oh my God, I hope it stays this way. And it doesn't like reset him because, like, I like this outcome. And all of a sudden, everything before that he ended up doing, like, to a certain point, because there's a checkpoint here, and then he has to finish this checkpoint. If he doesn't, he has to start back from the previous. But everything he did in between is erased. So no one remembers everything he did except for him. And it's like there's certain outcomes and certain, like, romance and just certain things that he talked with characters and the developments that he made with friendships is just all erased. And, like, as a viewer, you kind of get frustrated. You're like, oh man, like, I wanted this to be that checkpoint. So all of what he did wasn't gone to waste. He may remember, but everybody else doesn't. And that, I think that's the point of the show, right? Like, you get upset because, like, for instance, if you love somebody, like, for instance, say you live in a storyline, right? And then you meet somebody and you fall in love with them. And then things just work out and everything's perfect. You get to a checkpoint and somehow you just die. All the happy memories that you made, they stay with you, but everybody around you doesn't remember. And it's like, all that felt like a waste, at least to them, because they don't know what happened. So now you have to start over. And what if that person doesn't feel the same way anymore? Because it's a different timeline, or it's a different, I'm just going to say timeline, I guess. I don't know. It's different. Like, these people don't have those memories anymore. He does. So he expects them to feel the way he does because that he's already been through it. They're in his memories, his emotions. It makes sense. He's in love with somebody and that person doesn't love him back because they didn't experience that. And that's the kind of, like, sad part, that the main reason why I love this show, right? It's because of that aspect, that he has to suffer through internal stuff and physically as well. But it's like everything that he does sometimes doesn't matter because he ends up being reset and basically everybody forgets except for him. So he has to live with that memory, knowing that everything that he knows, and he has to keep doing it over and over and over again. Just like if you get it right the first time, but yet something happens and you end up resetting because you died, it's kind of like, so now I did that for nothing, and now I have to make these people remember me or fall in love with me again or like me. And it's like sometimes you can't recreate something that happened just naturally the first time. It's fabricated into something else, and it turns into something else because it's different. But I will say, it was really a different outcome whenever Rem, like, you kind of see, and it makes sense, but you kind of see her trying to kill him, the main protagonist, simply because of his scent. Every time that he resets, this magical scent of this cursed witch or whatever gets stronger, and Rem senses that but doesn't really understand it. So she thinks he's part, like, evil or something, or he's up to no good or whatever, because of what happened to her past and her family, her village and all that. So it makes sense, but every time that he ends up resetting, it gets stronger and stronger, like that scent. But the first timeline, wherever he meets Rem, she kills him. And in the second timeline, like, you find out it was her that killed him, and she kills him again. And eventually ends up leading to a point where he saves her and they become friends or whatever, and they become close and all that. And I guess the reality is that if you take it for what it is and you take, like, the first timeline, then there would have never been, like, we probably would have never loved Rem, right? At least me. Like, I love her for what she did and one of my favorite episodes, where it happened, where he hated himself, and they had that whole dialogue. The whole episode was really beautiful. But yeah, and it's understandable, because if you think about it, sometimes when you interact with certain people, it doesn't matter who, but you just interact with somebody, if you're given a chance over and over, it's not going to end up the same way exactly. Maybe your first time interacting with this one person is going to end up worse. And then you interact with them, and if you're given another chance, it's probably going to be a better interaction, right? It really depends on like how you go about things. And, it's just fiction, right? But he's given multiple chances to do this. But you also have to understand Rem, what she's been through and why she felt this way. It's not that she was bad. She just was trying to do good for what she thought was like good, and she thought he was evil. So, she was just protecting what she wanted to protect. She had no understanding of what was really going on. And even the main protagonist didn't understand why she kept killing him. And then later, he found out or whatever. And yeah, but she ended up finding out that she's really sweet and all this, because she is. But yeah. And like the most emotional episode. Oh man, like I don't know. Like I said, a lot of people did hate the character, and it's not everybody. I don't know what the ratio is between people who hated him and people who loved him. I just know, like, you see both sides, especially if you go all over Reddit, you see a lot of people talking down about this anime, which is perfectly fine. They make their points of why they didn't like it and what they hated about it and all this and that. And it's perfectly fine to not enjoy something, and it's perfectly fine to enjoy something as well. Like, everyone has their own perspectives on what they sort of enjoy and find entertaining. And that's perfectly fine. I feel like it's normal. And yeah, like, what would be, it would be boring if everybody thought the same way, right? So yeah, it's just kind of, some people go about it and say, oh, because you like it, you're stupid, or because you hate it, you're stupid. Like, I don't think we should be doing that. We should kind of be open to trying to understand why they criticized it in a certain way and why people liked it the way they did, But that's just my take on it. But it's still, anyways, like, the main timeline, I do end up loving Rem. Like, she's really sweet, she's honest, and it kind of sucks the way, like, this is going to be heavily spoiled. I mean, I already spoiled it a lot, so if you haven't seen it, I probably should have made a disclaimer at the very beginning, sorry. But everything in any anime or any anime movie that I'll talk about is always going to have spoilers, just so you know ahead of time, hopefully. But yeah, I do apologize in advance, which is kind of too late now, but yeah. So the main thing that I wanted to talk about, at least it's going to take majority of this talk, was the episode where we sort of see him talking to Rem, right? And the reason I love this episode so much, and I feel like a lot of people relate to this, which is why they enjoy this episode, and they hate it at the same time, because it was one of like, what? Why would you say that, right? When Rem kind of confesses that she loves Subaru and all this stuff, and he says he loves Emilia, which is perfectly fine. He admired and he loved Emilia from the start. Like, if he's just going back and forth because he's trying to live in these moments, it's kind of like, well, he can easily move on from girl to girl, right? So it's respectful of him to just keep eyes on what he wants and what he loves and what he admires. But at the same time, like, to me, I don't really, like, Emilia didn't really shine in this series. Who knows what's going to happen in season 2, like, unless you read, like, the light novels or whatever. But so far, like, this was really Rem story. Like, most of the time, once you get to, like, even from the beginning, it was mainly her. You see her in more of the episodes than you do Emilia, and it seems like she's part of the main protagonist as well, even along with Subaru. And it's kind of sort of, we get her story, we get her background, we get what she's going through, what she's thinking, how she feels about certain things and all that. We even see her, like, getting killed and suffering and all this, and it's really upsetting. Like, it's really heartbreaking. So I don't know. But this one episode, he kind of expresses himself. Well, before I get to that, let me explain, like, a lot of people have said that, like I mentioned earlier before, by resetting, You should be able to make the right choices if you're given three chances, right? And even in, like, imagine seeing people, like the people that you love, die over and over again, or just seeing people that you care about being hurt. It's sort of, it will get to you that, like, there was a few episodes where he got, mentally messed up and he kind of lost it because no matter what he did, it was never right and it never worked out the way that he wanted to. He was always seeing the people that he loved hurt. He was always seeing, them getting destroyed or getting killed, or like it just never working out the way things should have worked out. And eventually, from seeing these things over and over, people may say, he gets to start over. Like, why does it matter? But if you put it into perspective, if you were actually witnessing this in real life, seeing like your loved ones die over and over, you're not just going to say, I have another chance to start over, right? Like, you don't know the extent of how this works. You can kind of take a guess that, maybe if I die or restart, like, you don't really know how many times you can die. You don't know where it's going to restart from, like if you're living that life and it's restarting, you really don't know how it works to an extent. So it's kind of like every time that this happens, it's painful seeing the person that you admire, the people that you love, getting hurt and being destroyed or being killed that way. And eventually it gets to him, and it makes sense that it would get to him, right? Like, that's what's really heartbreaking for me, is it does sort of take you in the route of like, okay, like I'm seeing these people suffer that I love over and over again. I need to change it, but I'm not smart enough to make a difference. I'm not powerful enough to make a difference. And I've never been good at anything. So how will I make a difference? And these are the characteristics of the main protagonist. And it's sort of something that a lot of us can probably relate to, because it's like, there's a lot of things, like, especially me, like there's a lot of things that I'm not good at. I'm not smart. I'm not like knowledgeable in a lot of stuff. I don't have a good personality to be able to make people laugh. I'm like, there's a lot of things that I can relate with. And it's kind of like, okay, if I can't protect the people that I love, then what am I good for? All I'm doing is seeing them suffer over and over. And not only are they suffering, but I'm suffering by seeing them suffer because I'm not able to protect the ones that I care about. And that's sort of like really like, I don't know. A lot of these scenes made me cry, a lot of these episodes. And yeah, so those episodes are really heartbreaking. He ends up being super like numb and he's just out of it. And it's kind of like you feel for him because he's finally got traumatized by everything that's been going on to him. And Rem is one of the persons that helps him get through it, and he finally changes because he wants to protect her and all this. So yeah, like seeing her suffer really sucked, honestly. Like, man, I don't know. It was really upsetting. But one of the heartwarming episodes, and it's nothing but dialogue. I think most of the show is basically dialogue. There's not really no action. Yeah, there's some fight sequences here and there, and some of them are really good, and some of them aren't really that well animated. But it's not really about the fights. It's more about like the story, I feel like. Like, I didn't care anything about the fights, It was kind of like, I want this person to survive and not die, and I want this character to, fucking rot in hell, whatever. It just seems to happen. But anyways, my favorite episode, well, nothing but, dialogue, which is most of the series anyways. He ends up finally acknowledging, which I feel he's always acknowledged this in the back of his mind, right? As most of us probably do, if you're like this. But you sort of see that he realizes that he hates himself, obviously, but he tries to do it by like fake it till you make it type of mentality. And it really doesn't work out that way, like it doesn't matter how much he tries to fake it to be this heroic person, to be this egotistical or this like, I'm good at everything, or I'm good at this, or I'm the best, or this is my story, whatever. Like, he tries to be positive, even though it kind of looks like being a jerk, because he wants to sort of fake it till you make it, like I said. And in this one episode, he sort of ends up realizing that which he's probably always acknowledged, but he tried to keep it to a down low, like within himself and contain it, because he thought if you fake it till you make it, it will eventually become a reality for him. And it never did. It never worked out for him. So in this episode, he kind of like breaks down. He ends up talking about how he hates himself. He ends up talking about his past, how before like he came into this world that he was put into, he reflects into his life that he had all the time in the world to do whatever he wanted, but he didn't make use of his time. He wasn't capable of maybe providing to society certain things. Maybe he wasn't knowledgeable in certain stuff. He didn't have the experience. He didn't have the IQ or the intelligence, whatever you want to call it, the skill sets to be able to provide something meaningful in his life, at least what's fulfilling for him. And so he just like life kept passing him by while he was just, merely riding the wave and not really living, but just surviving as day by day, just doing nothing, basically. He was nothing. It's like a lot of us, sometimes we don't find our purpose, or we don't tend to create our purpose, that we sort of get lost within the realm of our own like inner selves, and we end up doing other stuff to distract ourselves from the reality that we wish we had, but we never could achieve. So we put ourselves into like, maybe it's video games, maybe it's like reading, maybe it's like we're working at a job that we don't like, and we're just living through the moments, but we're just surviving through the moments, but we're never really living. We're never doing things that we enjoy, because it's like we've put ourselves down, and it's kind of like we hate ourselves because we feel like we're basically useless. Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, we have everything that we can eat, a roof over our heads. We can play video games and all this. But it doesn't mean that our life is fulfilling, right? It doesn't mean that, maybe if you can play games for a living and be able to like be established in some kind of content creation, whatever. This is what I'm sort of interpreted when it came to him, that he was basically not doing anything, like maybe if he was a content creator, which I don't think that existed in there, or maybe it did, but that's not the point. But it can sort of be connected with things in an outside perspective to like, playing video games for a living or making content for a living is different than just making content, right? Like you can sit there and play games and never make money. It's a completely different thing than playing games and making money, right? Because then you actually feel successful and you're doing something that you love, I would assume. But if you're just playing games because you want to distract yourself from the reality of the life that you're living, that it's not one that's fulfilling for you, it's not valuable for you, you're just trying to distract yourself. And that's kind of what he did. He was just distracting himself with other obstacles, and life was just passing him by. And he finally admitted that he hated himself, as a lot of people were saying way before these episodes, because you can go all over Reddit and people are saying, I hate the main protagonist of this story. He doesn't know how to do anything. He's useless. He acts like he can be the best and he can do anything. And I never hated him for that, because I understood that maybe he just wants to try to be that version that he wish he could be, and maybe one day he will, but he never was able to. Sometimes we're just boring. Sometimes we're just not good enough to be able to do these things, I guess. I don't know. But that's what really hit me. And he started breaking down, saying how he's just pretending to be strong. Like on the inside, he's hurting. He's pretending to be this person that he's not. And he's afraid of what people are going to see him if he brings out his true self. Like a lot of us are probably afraid of expressing our true emotions or expressing our real personality, because maybe people only like certain aspects of us, and maybe they only like the fun aspects or the confident aspects. They don't want to see like the vulnerable parts or the imperfections. So like he wants to hide all of that. But in this episode, he ends up bringing it out and talking about how he just hates all of that part of him, and he hates how he pretends to be something that he's not in order to be accepted by the people around him. And he pretends to be strong simply so he can one day maybe be strong, but it never works out. And just the fact that he's acknowledging that, and I don't know, I think it's a really beautiful thing, as well as it's really heartbreaking, because it's like super relatable. And just because something is relatable doesn't mean that it's good, but being relatable means that you can sort of understand and see a perspective that maybe you weren't able to see within yourself, because this goes back to the point that I said in the beginning, that sometimes it's easy to see it from an outside perspective, like when you're looking at someone else, but when it comes to your life, you sort of aren't looking at certain things, and you're not being critical of yourself because you're the one experiencing these certain things. So it's kind of hard to see that from an outside view. So yeah, and then this is what made me love Rem even more, because sometimes, and this isn't always the case, but sometimes you have people around you in your life, and just having your presence around is good enough. Like, there are things that make you who you are, and Rem was able to see this in him. She saw things that he didn't see within himself, the positive stuff. Like, he was only reflecting on the negative, right? Yeah, maybe he didn't accomplish anything or whatever, but that was in that other reality. He is now in this reality, and in this reality, he accomplished a lot. And yeah, maybe he was given multiple chances, and from her view, she doesn't know that, right? So I still understand it, because it's still heartbreaking. Like, from her mind, she thinks that he did good because, well, it only took him one try, right? But it took him multiple tries to get to where he's at. So from his mind, he's still going to be upset, whatever. Like, you can kind of see it as, well, it took me 10 tries to do it. But the point is, you're there now, right? In real life, like, when you make certain choices, sometimes you don't perfect things in one try. You have to keep doing them over and over again. But the only difference is the mistakes stick with you, and everybody around you knows the mistakes that you made. And then, you get older or whatever. But with Subaru, it's kind of like you reset, like it never happened. It happened to him. He still has the experiences, but to everyone else around him, they never knew. So he can like mess up, and no one would ever know that it happened. So yeah, anyway, she kind of, she's over here listening to like all the things that she loves about him, and like all the kind things, all the positive things, and how he helped her get through a hard time. And the way that you need to watch this season, like this episode, but they have like the whole clip on YouTube, like just that one scene. I think it's about, 6 minutes. I don't know. It's pretty long, but it's really good. And it always puts me to tears. It's really like beautiful. The colors are really pretty. Like, the voice acting is amazing. I don't know how the English dub is. I never watched it in dub. I think they dubbed it, I'm sure. But yeah. So she ends up confessing like how much she loves him, whatever. And eventually he kind of like snaps out of this depression that he's in, this mental state. And he said he's going to be better or whatever. And he's going to, keep looking forward. And what made me upset, which makes sense though, that he said he loved Amelia, he doesn't love her. And, rejected her right then and there. Rem, best waifu. But it's understandable. Like I said, it's not like you want to keep switching back and forth to who he loves, right? Like, he obviously loved Amelia from the start. That's who he loves. That's who he met first and all that. I respect that. If he's just going to simply choose someone else because, oh, she's here now in this moment and she accepts me, let me just stick with her, whatever, Like, yeah, even though, like, Amelia probably doesn't love him. I don't know how it's going to be in the second season, but it's kind of like, okay, respect, he's going to keep trying until he maybe gets her, maybe he doesn't, and then he can move forward. But that's kind of the reality of it. Sometimes, sometimes we like people and they don't like us, but they're interested in somebody else, even though we feel like we do our part better than the other person. Like, this is the perspective that we see, that Rem is doing way better than Amelia, but it doesn't mean Amelia is a bad character or a bad person. We just haven't really seen her story. We really haven't seen or learned much about her or her personality because she hasn't had that much screen time. So maybe in the second season, we'll know more about her. We'll love her more. Who knows? She might become the best girl, but Rem is still always going to be first in my heart simply because she was first, right? So just like for Subaru, Amelia was first. So, yeah, I enjoyed the series. I loved it. I'm excited for season 2. I need to watch the OVA and the movie. I haven't seen those. I'll probably talk about them. I don't know if they're canon or not, but I'll definitely talk about them and see what they're about. I've seen the trailers, but I don't know if they're released yet. I'm pretty sure they're released. I don't know if they're released like legally now, like on Crunchyroll or something. I'll see if I can find them. If not, I guess I'll just wait. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the series. I thought it was really beautiful. I thought it was amazing. The ending, I had to spoil myself. And I'm like, I want to know what happened. So yeah, like it ends up being like, who's Rim? And it's kind of like, oh my God, all that effort, like, is it gone for sure? Is she gone forever? Like that was the most upsetting part for me. Because I'm like, where's Rim in all this? Like, what happened to her? You know, like, is she fine? Is she not? Like, and then is he going to reset? Is he going to figure out? And it kind of leaves on a happy ending with him and Amelia, but it's like, where is Rim? You know, I want like, and then it finally ends up like, who's Rim? Like, oh my God. And when I seen that scene, I was kind of like, is he going to reset? Is it not going to reset? Is this permanent? Like, it has to be permanent, right? And knowing I didn't go super far ahead, so I don't know. Like, that's the only part that I read, and they even animated later, so I ended up seeing it later. But I don't know, the way these type of shows go, usually I think she's probably fine, or she will be fine. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that she's not fine simply because it makes it more impactful. You know, obviously people will be upset, but personally I feel like it just makes it more impactful because it feels more realistic, right? Like if you're always getting things that you want or things are working out to your favor, it's sort of like, I mean, happy ever afters don't always happen. Happily ever afters. But it doesn't matter. Even if it's a happy ending, I'm fine with it. It's just, it gives you more in the feels and more like, oh man, like more in tears, more upset when stuff like that happens. You know, like Attack on Titan, when people that you love actually die and it's kind of like, they're actually dead, you know, or Game of Thrones. Like, it just makes it more impactful. They're willing to kill people that are main characters, except for the last season, whatever. But anyways, yeah. That's my take on it. Let me know your thoughts, what you thought about the series. There's a lot of things that I missed. I didn't talk about like the whole series in general, but just different parts of the show. Like the animation is really beautiful. It's colorful, but usually all animation seems to be standard nowadays. Mainly what's hard to animate is probably like the fight scenes and all that. There's just not too many in this. There are a couple of them, and I don't think like they're the most important aspect of this show. They're not like perfectly well done, but they're not bad either, you know? So yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm definitely waiting for season 2. I'll definitely be checking out the OVA and the movies, and maybe I'll end up talking about them. Who knows? I'll see if they're worth talking about. So yeah, I think the next thing that I'm going to talk about is Violet Evergarden. I don't know when. I'm still watching it, and I'll probably end up watching a movie. I don't know if I want to talk about them together or separately, but yeah, I know I watched Violet Evergarden when it came out, but I never finished it. I didn't feel like crying. As weird as that may sound, I didn't really like the first 3 episodes. I stopped, and I think the second one had me crying, or maybe it was the third one, but it was like, yeah, I can't handle this right now, so I'm just not going to watch it. But I feel like I'm a little better, and I'm willing to watch it, so I've been watching it. I started last week. I still haven't finished it. But yet, I recently checked on Netflix, and there was a movie, and I was like, I didn't know there was a movie. I wonder if it's like one of those movies where it combines the whole first season, or if it's a separate thing. I'll find that out later. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be talking about that next, maybe. Or maybe I'll talk about something else, and then I'll talk about that. But whenever I'll finish, I'll give my thoughts about the series and maybe the movie. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and hopefully you enjoy that. And I guess I'll talk to you next time, and hopefully everyone has a lovely day and be safe. So yeah.